Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear me now? Hello? No. Testing, testing. Erik? Hello? Finally. Well, first of all, we really appreciate it that you could come out on a beautiful day like this instead of just staying home laying around on your bed. That's what I might have done. Anyway, I'm Lynn Di Nino, and I've been organizing these tripod shows for at least 5 years. And I think I took a break for a year or something, but I never wrote it down, so I don't know. Anyway, there's a bathroom back here, and there's one downstairs under those stairs. And I'm getting ready to introduce Duncan and Mary, who are doing our first show. And I'll read a little bit about who they are. How many people know Duncan and Mary? Okay, never mind, I won't read the bio. No, I will anyway. They'll present the first show tonight. Mary is a retired elementary school teacher, a plant lover, and longtime amateur gardener with a focus on woodland gardens. Mary gets lots of inspiration from many wonderful gardener friends, but her first inspiration came from her grandmother, who planted beautiful, colorful flowers all around her yard. Mary and Duncan's slides are from their acre that has a couple of meandering creeks. Their previous home was an acre with a major creek. When looking to move 12 years ago, Mary told Duncan she wanted a jungle, and that's what they got. At the time, it was a jungle of blackberries and laurel gone rogue. Anybody here have laurel on their property? As well as a grove of 80-foot end-of-life alders. Now Mary spends plenty of happy time weeding, pruning, planting, and just plain looking at plants. Retired photojournalist Duncan Livingston, who was at the Trib for most of his career, I think, spent the last 20 years putzing around first Mary's farmhouse and now their Brookside Gardens home in a ravine near Titlow Beach in West Tacoma. After seeing a lot of the world, he's content these days as amateur logger and shovel boy, landscaping and cleaning up windfall on their wooded acre. Happenstance, nature, and light often compel Duncan to pull out his trusty phone camera, hoping to capture what colleagues would refer to as wild art. These random images occasionally see the light of day. Here's hoping something tickles your fancy. You guys want to come up here?
Thanks. Yes, lights. Well, thank you all for coming on a nice day like this. You'd think you'd been somewhere else for sure. And thank you, Lynn, again, for all you do here. And thank you, Erik. Erik, the sound and video guy is amazing.
And I think I said most everything I need to say already in my bio. I couldn't believe there was that much in there. So that's a lot. And the slides will speak for themselves other than...
I wanted to say that there's some shots. The slides are going to run 5 seconds apiece throughout for about 7 minutes. But anyway, you'll see some of the tree. A tree has fallen over one of our waterfalls, and it's so you'll see a series that show a couple of the trees that hit it and a tree uprooted next to it, and how then the final shot will be the repair job we just finished doing. But, so enjoy, and you can, Eric says he can stop the show in the middle if somebody has a question, but otherwise we're just gonna let it run. And then after that, we're gonna take about a 1 minute to set up the video and show you 7 minutes of short clips. And that's it. That way we can't go over, it's all out of our hands. Okay, so I guess we're ready to go. You can flip this light off, Eric. And go ahead. Go ahead. So we're gonna, do you want to sit down or do you want to stand?
Go ahead.
I guess we'll stand here and watch it. I don't want to look at that spot. I can't see where I'm going.
So what are we stuck here? That's gotta be more than 5 seconds.
While he's getting that rolling, I'll tell you that we had, somebody had dumped on the back of our property a load of cobblestones. And so a lot of the stairways we built around there are cobblestone, and that's what you're looking at, with some alder.
Next slide.
Hey, Eric, can I prompt them? Can I scroll through them? There's no audio. We have a resident owl. That's a cleanup crew.
Did you take all the pictures, Duncan?
No, Mary took some of these.
The good ones are Mary.
Yeah, blueberry.
Shout him out.
That's not the end. Is it? No. That's partway through.
Sorry, I'm working on it. It's frozen again. It might be the heat. I don't know, but I've been fighting with this computer all evening. It keeps just freezing up and not working. So, but I'm going to try to get it started again.
I've been elected to give you a sideshow. So I did want to mention that once we get through this and into the video clips, there's owl porn. In case any of you are opposed to that, you might want to get up and leave at that point. So I can tell you a little bit. We moved into.
They call you Al?
Speak into the
Owl?
speaker.
They call me Owl?
Yeah.
No, they don't.
How many
I mean-
years have you guys been?
We moved in there, we bought the property in 2012, and Mary had an acre out in Frederickson and with a big creek. These are little trickly.
Can you use the microphone, please? Thank you.
We have two springs, or we have a lot of springs in the side of the hill, but two creeks come down the hill and join together to make one medium-sized small creek with some waterfalls. But these alders, they grew down in these ravines in our property, trying to get to the light, so they've grown up a little, probably taller than they might have been otherwise. But then they get lanky, and then they die from the top down, and they start to break up and fall. So we don't garden on windy days. And I can tell you countless trees. What? Okay. The lights, please.
Thank you.
Mine is one shot. And it's, I planted a tree there, so
That is not a bird. There's a wild animal. That's the tree that fell last year over the waterfalls. That's the tree on the right fell and ripped up the waterfall this year, and that's what it's finished here.
Oh, yeah, just took that up there. Wow.
That's the end.
Now he's not gonna be able to stop it.
We're all trapped here.
We're in the loop now.
So now there's a video will come up, and it's gonna have its natural audio with it, just a lot of short clips. And so you might have to listen carefully, and some of it is just people talking in the background, but some of it is maybe amusing. So I'm not a videographer, and these are just, I happen to have that camera in my pocket, so once in a while I go, oh, this is a video. Here it goes.
You didn't want us about the people.
Is there audio?
Yeah.
Shit, that tree fell a couple days ago.
They weren't afraid of you.
spiders go out to the edge and go, oh, it's scary, and they run back.
Well, they do, that's yes.
How big are they?
About a 16th of an inch.
Wow, that's a close-up.
So it's a macro.
Cherry blossom.
Cherry blossom.
Outside. This is one of our gardeners pruning wood.
One of your gardeners.
They're chasing an eagle.
Anyway, so they got into the pumpkin patch too, for our pumpkins.
And are they passing through or living in the valley?
They're going up and down the river, I think.
That's a red-tailed hawk sound, but I know there are birds that imitate it.
Yep.
You're supposed to look like rock.
Mama's gonna be mad.
He knows I'm there, he doesn't care. See, I was supposed to ride.
I was worried that she was a duck and he was gonna have to figure her out.
Fourth of July last year?
Coming to your house. Yeah, I found him in my garage. He was about dead, and I put him on that leaf. Oh, yeah. We had it, got
Go!
2003, 2005, 2006.
6. Oh well. Let's go up to the swing. Wait! One more time!
Uh-oh.
Just a earth.
The other one looks like some kind of.
I've never seen a pink one, Linda.
No, he's not a centipede, that's not a centipede. He really has- And I've seen them deal like that. That's really weird. Oh, all right.
That's a big rabbit. Be a very good stew.
That's him.
All right.
So,
Questions?
Questions? Trying to stand up here.
So do you want to see more owl porn?
okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, that was great. So these shows are posted on YouTube, and when you see the next invitation to a tripod at the bottom, you'll see the link so that you can go straight to see those. And there's a sign-up clipboard in the back on that table if you need to be on the mailing list, if you aren't already. So next up is Adela Ramos. She's the Director of Partnerships and Communications for the Tacoma Tree Foundation. In the urban forest of her imagination, the root systems of big leaf maples, Douglas firs, and western red cedars are entwined with colorines, jacarandas, and perules. These are the trees whose colors, scents, and seasonal transformations compose the canopy of the two places she calls home, Tacoma, where she has lived for the past 13 years, and Mexico City, where she is originally from and returns to every year. Thanks to her grandmother and mother, both border-crossing and courageous women, she grew up finding connections between seemingly disparate languages and people, places, and their urban forests. Today, she is fortunate to spend her days cultivating connections between the Tacoma Tree Foundation and partners in the greater Tacoma area and Pierce County, as well as crafting communications that speak to the interest and needs of supporters and the people the foundation serves. Drawing on her nearly 20 years of experience in higher education, her love of literature, history, and science, she develops the Tacoma Tree Foundation's educational program. And she speaks Spanish, by the way. Adela.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me, Lynn, to represent the foundation, and to all of you for being here on this beautiful day. So I'm going to talk about our work, and I'd be happy to answer questions after everybody's done presenting, and I also brought some materials, so you can follow up with me. So we are a 5-year-old nonprofit. We're community-driven, focused on growing tree canopy in Tacoma and the Puget Sound by reducing barriers to trees, tree planting, and providing free tree education. We are 4 full-time people strong currently, or 5 if you count our very new and beautiful EV truck, who we call Cedro. We also have a great team of part-time staff and interns. Oh, it was working fine. It's hot, so it might be. Yeah, forward, and it is, the little light is coming on. Oh, now? Yeah, so we have an amazing part-time staff and interns who also support and help us get out there and get the word out, and an amazing, energetic, thoughtful, and passionate board of Tacoma residents who guide our work. And we do this work. Yep. It's okay. It's technology.
Is that Jennifer?
That is Jennifer. Right over there, too. Yes.
How many people are on your board?
13.
Wow. And are they on for years?
3 years.
2 years.
Oh, 2 years. I wish they were on for 3 years, because they're all amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Erik. And we do this work on the ancestral lands of the Puyallup tribe, acknowledging that we are reforesting a city and county built on stolen land involves reflecting on the social, political, and cultural history that shapes the city and its urban forest. This acknowledgement also reminds us that our relationship to trees is not neutral. It is deeply personal, and once you become aware of trees, it's hard not to think of the ways they shape how we walk in the world, not only in the streets where we live, but in those we grew up, which tend to stay in our minds wherever we travel. This is why at the foundation, we often start the story of our work by sharing our personal tree stories. Nope.
Is any of this done on Port of Tacoma?
Yes, actually, I'll show you a photo of our recent, yeah, we planted a few trees there in January.
Swan Creek?
This is actually Parkland Prairie. Yeah, by the old golf course by Pacific Lutheran University.
Same problem again, it's frozen.
Okay, that's okay.
What's your main source of funding?
Well, we have individual donors that we value very deeply. The big projects and planting funds that we get for our biggest projects or events come from state and city grants. So we just got a Department of Natural Resources grant, $350,000 to plant on Hilltop for 3 years, which we're really excited about. Yeah. 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 Yeah, we're really excited because obviously it's a neighborhood that really needs the trees, and a lot of, as I'll explain, all our work also involves a lot of community outreach and community building. So we're excited to do that there. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, awesome. So yeah, that's where I left off. So my personal relationship to trees begins in Mexico City, where I grew up admiring the jacaranda tree pictured here, which was not originally a tree native to Mexico, but from South America. It was brought to the city, by Tatsuguro Matsumoto, a Japanese royal gardener turned urban gardener who was asked by the president at the time to plant flowering cherry trees on one of the city's most important avenues. But due to the weather, he chose a tree that would do well in Mexico's environment. And thanks to him, every spring, the city is softened by a canopy of leaves, flowers, and shade. Yeah, it's amazing. I think of the jacarandas that color Mexico City as an important reminder of the magic that happens when cross-cultural relationships take root, and when we are open to letting others transform our sense of what is possible. Although Matsumoto was not thinking that the city where we planted jacarandas would grow into a megalopolis of 20 million people, one of the many gifts he gave us is the ability to shut out the cars, noise, and walk under the cool shade, because the concrete that feels very, very hot every day as it is, and especially hot around the time the jacarandas bloom in March. Mexico as a whole, and especially Mexico City, are currently facing a dire water crisis, which is especially poignant when considering where the city was built, on a system of lakes. It grew into its present size, first through the need for more firm land to grow crops, which the Mexicas developed, then through colonization, urban development, and industrialization. The images of the city that I have just shared might not make you think much about Tacoma, but as Lynn shared, I grew up finding connections between the US and Mexico. And the more I live in Tacoma, the harder it is for me to stop thinking about both cities in relationship to each other, especially when I look at this image. Both cities were built in relation to access to water, which is replenished with snow from the surrounding mountains and volcanoes, and both are grappling with the legacy of a colonial and industrial past. This photo here, for instance, can be seen as an illustration of how the Puyallup Reservation abuts with the Thailands where the port is located, which is one of the neighborhoods of the city with the fewest trees. A key difference, of course, between the two cities is that Tacoma developed in relation to the timber industry, which has led us to be the city with the lowest tree canopy in Washington's western coast. Depending on whether or not our work is new to you here today, the fact that we are the city with the lowest tree canopy in Western Washington might come as a surprise. If you live in a neighborhood like mine, which is this photo is from, and I'm actually only a few blocks up, you might welcome more trees like I did a couple falls ago when I planted this Silcova to replace a big leaf maple that had been cut down due to disease. Yet, I ultimately feel like I am in the company of trees. You can see one from the apartment I rent, and this might be true for you as well, and I can walk on sidewalks shaded by trees. But this is not the case in the majority of neighborhoods in Tacoma, whose sidewalks might look and feel more like this, or even this. With the exception of the North End and Northeast, all Tacoma neighborhoods are under the desired 30% tree canopy coverage that the city and state governments are working toward. But even the North End and Northeast are lacking trees and do not really fully enjoy the benefits that an urban forest can provide. So what do neighborhoods without trees lack? Yes, that's true. Yes, we need one in every neighborhood. For one tree canopy, which accounts for the layer of leaves, branches, and stems of a tree, and in our experience of the sidewalk, this would translate into shade on a hot day like today, or protection from rain during the rest of the year. On a hot summer day, this also translates to a cooler sidewalk, as temperatures between a street with no trees and few trees can vary from 10 to 20 degrees. Trees also, of course, clean the air, filter stormwater, and positively impact our sense of wellness, belonging, our ability to focus, and they even can reduce car speed. Currently in Tacoma, higher opportunity neighborhoods have 15% more tree cover than lower opportunity neighborhoods, creating what Lowell Wise, who's our executive director, refers to as Tacoma's unfair forest. The impact of this poor distribution of trees in the city can be measured in relation to this heat map from July 2018, and the image was taken at 3 p.m. during a heat wave. In the 2021 heat wave, 138 people died in Washington state, and 8 of them were Tacoma residents. Radio station KNKX mapped the hottest places in Tacoma in relation to, what's happening? Oh, there we go. In relation to the Homeowners Loan Corporation 1937 map, created during the New Deal era, which essentially shows how redlining policies shaped Tacoma. The corporation rated the creditworthiness of neighborhoods and cities across the country, taking into account factors such as rising home prices and resident income levels. Only 5% of Tacoma earned the highest rate, and among other things, this determined Tacoma's current lack of tree canopy and tree equity due to lack of investment. KNKX heat mapping found that the hottest neighborhoods in Tacoma are the neighborhoods that have been historically redlined. And so this is a tree equity map, which measures how much access neighborhoods in Tacoma have to the benefits of trees. The deeper red sections are the ones with a higher socioeconomic opportunity, which is where the highest degree of tree canopy can be found. Whereas the rest of the city, as you can see, is lacking tree canopy and will be the hottest during the heat waves and just the summer. So what are we doing about all of this? We are committing to reducing barriers to tree shade and tree benefits by providing free trees, and when possible, planting assistance and tree care. And we share these trees through large-scale events, planting events, small tree shares, and when we're invited to speak, sometimes we can bring trees as well. We didn't bring them today because it's summer, and you're not supposed to plant trees in the summer if you want them to do well. But for our trees to take root, we have to start with the community. For trees to grow healthy and to thrive, so must communities have social cohesion. So this is why all of our planting events are driven by volunteers who live in Tacoma and who are excited to plant in their own neighborhoods or in other neighborhoods. And a key goal is also to plant with young people, since most of our efforts are ultimately to ensure that the young people who will live in Tacoma in the future enjoy robust tree canopy and have a culture of tree appreciation around them. We make our best effort to ensure residents get to choose their own trees, because obviously that fosters a stronger connection, and that allows them to choose where they want their trees when possible. And we also offer education as to where to plant the trees, as I'll go into in a little bit. Our work is really not possible without partnerships. It's huge work, obviously, that requires many kinds of expertise and time, organization and outreach. So we have great partnerships with the city and the county, as well as with specific government entities like the port. We planted 51 trees in the port in January, and that's one stage of a planting project that the port wants to develop. We rely on an amazing crew of volunteers that come to all of our planting events, no matter the weather. And we provide support to residents as they choose their trees, making sure that they can plant the right tree in the right place. And this is really key to make sure that trees thrive into the future, and that when people take the tree home, they know how to take care of it and can ensure that it will live to maturity and provide the best benefits. We're also making efforts to do our outreach in multiple languages so that we benefit as many members of the Tacoma community as possible. This is a photo from our biggest planting project last fall, Branch Out, where we offered support in Russian, Spanish, Ukrainian, and Vietnamese. And our tree shares are often done in partnership with local organizations with whom we share values. So this is from a tree share that we did with Mi Centro, and Food is Free. So Food is Free was giving out plant starters, and we were giving out free trees and helping make those connections for community members. But all of our work to provide free trees and planting assistance is not really sustainable without a robust educational program that, first of all, allows people to walk together in the public spaces of Tacoma, such as the park, to learn about trees, tree species, and their benefits, and walk through their neighborhoods, doing so with the goal of helping residents understand the value of the tree next door and not just the tree that's far away in the forest, and giving us the opportunity to learn about them and then also advocate for greener neighborhoods. We also help residents connect with nature by teaching mindfulness practices that they can practice on their own by going back to a park or just even on the sidewalk next to a tree. And we do this in English and also in a bilingual format. And we also partner with local, not necessarily nonprofits only, but aspiring nonprofits. This is Caminemos Juntos, an organization that's focused on providing perinatal health and wellness support for Latina women. And we also make sure that we provide different entry points not for everybody. Not everybody can plant or is interested in spending hours outdoor helping us plant, but they might really love trees and want to support these efforts and connect to trees. And so we provide opportunities to do so in writing workshops. This is from a workshop that we did on odes to trees in December. And this is from a haiku comics workshop where we first go on a mindfulness walk and then gather at King's Books, and David Lasky, who's a Seattle-based artist, teaches us how to put what we experience in the park into visual art. And just as with our planting events, we are developing a very exciting youth program called Nature Explorers, and it's a curriculum online that's free and that can be printed out if you have any young ones in your lives that will be excited about that kind of engagement. And we also take our activities to tabling events and to schools. And so we believe that really tree appreciation is what leads to tree stewardship. And we do provide 2 tree stewards training annually. And in this tree stewards trainings, Tacoma residents, which are for free, and sometimes we can even offer a stipend, learn about city history, tree canopy, tree equity, right tree in the right place, tree pruning, and how to have conversations about trees with neighbors, as well as about the importance of listening, because obviously even though we love trees, not everybody has the same relationship with trees, and trees require maintenance, and trees can also be considered risk. So it's important to have those conversations and listen to what people around us need. Stewards then often form part of our base of volunteers, and they end up having the opportunity to teach other Tacoma residents about trees, to choose their tree species, and help them go home with the right tree. And this is really, we feel, like a puzzle piece in the grander kind of project that the city and the county are developing to make sure Tacoma is climate resilient. And so we're really fortunate to have been chosen to lead the climate leadership cohort program by the city and the county. And so we just did that actually a couple weeks ago. And it helps community residents that are concerned about climate change to connect with local leaders, elected officials, organizations, and community advocates, talk about the issues that are affecting their communities, and then develop a project that they can take back to the community so that they can support and advocate for their community. So in sum, we basically do free trees and free education, and through these really are hoping to help build a Tacoma that has a fair urban forest for all and a very strong community. And we really appreciate all volunteers and all kinds of interests. So I brought some materials that are on the piano in case you want to volunteer with us or just attend our events. And I'm also happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much.
To what extent do you emphasize native plants? And how do you balance out native plants versus, for example, use the example of the jacaranda, which is not native,
No.
But how do you balance that out?
Yeah, in terms of our plants, so in terms of talking about, oh, sorry, thank you. In terms of talking about the value of native plants, we are definitely encouraging people to plant as many native plants as they can, because obviously those are the best for our ecosystem. But our planting projects also include non-native trees that are adaptive to our zone because of climate change. A lot of our native trees are being more and more vulnerable to disease, to heat, and so county, city, and us are constantly learning about how to make sure that the trees that we bring are obviously safe for this ecosystem, but also have to plant climate adaptive trees to make sure that Tacoma's urban forest can actually make it through the next decades of challenges. In our tree shares, we also give out shrubs and seeds, and those are always native. So yeah, and the jacaranda example, I think for me is an important example of adaptive trees. We often have conversations with people who are concerned about non-native trees and the importance of distinguishing those from invasive species because they're not the same. So yeah, but it's a really important conversation, and we understand. We work with a lot of native plant advocates like Dr. Romy Haberly at POU. She gives a lot of our walks, and she teaches us about how native plants reinforce the needs of other native plants and make for a healthy ecosystem. So,
thanks for being here. The question I have has to do with people who are resistant to trees because of the maintenance that they create.
Yeah.
You know, how do you speak to somebody who hates leaves on their sidewalk or the roots that lift the sidewalk?
Yes, well, our principle is always listening. Those concerns are real, right? We think a lot about accessibility, and tree maintenance is expensive. And if you don't have what you need to pay a gardener or pay a tree expert to come and prune your tree the way it needs to be pruned, or you can't afford the prospect of paying for the sidewalk if the roots come up, those are definitely conversations that we listen to very attentively, and wherever possible provide resources that people can access to help them. We're also hopeful about how tree appreciation, listening, also believing in kind of the slow process of persuasion can help people get to a point where they can both appreciate the tree. If we can provide access to resources that will help them, then they'll definitely choose to keep a tree up instead of cutting it down. But we think of it as an ongoing conversation that needs to be had carefully. Yeah, it's an important part of our work.
Are there any laws about trees and the maintenance of within the city of Tacoma?
Now there are. So they've been in place since 1927, but they hadn't been updated until this year. And actually Tacoma last fall in December voted in a new tree ordinance, which went into effect on June 1st. And this tree ordinance now is the first Tacoma tree ordinance that really values trees, basically. not as things to be cut down, but as infrastructure. And so we actually have a blog post on that explains the 5 takeaways from the tree ordinance. But it will now be, for instance, illegal to prune a tree inappropriately. That's on the right of way. So that's really important because the tree ordinance is about protecting trees in the right of way. I invite you to also get engaged on the conversation on home in Tacoma, because that new policy, if it goes into place, is also addressing private property. Currently, if the tree is in your private property, you can cut it down. But in the right of way, it's protected. And Georgette is here, so she knows that ordinance really well, so you can also talk with her.
Hi.
Yeah.
So, we appreciate what you do greatly. Question, why are you not part of the city? Why have you not pushed to become an agency of the Public Works Department or Streets and Grounds, as opposed to being an independent
organization?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really important question. Thanks for asking it. We can actually do more for Tacoma if we're independent. The city has a lot of restrictions around what they can do. Whenever we can get unrestricted funds to support the community, we can do more. So we don't have to work within the limitations of city government or county government, number one. And number two, I think a city that is concerned about its urban forest will be stronger if there are people working in different places, rather than everybody being in the city or everybody in the county. So we really appreciate the partnership we have with both, and they appreciate us because they lean on us for a lot of things that would be slower, for instance, if it were up to the city or the county to do it. Just even things like education, because everything has to get approved in a certain way, whereas we can move things along a little bit faster when it comes to, I don't know, sharing information with the public, for instance.
And one more question, is there an organization like yours that deals with commercial applications? You're residentially oriented, correct? So we notice so many of the streets on the commercial streets are butchered, and all of the parking lots in the mall and everywhere else, all the trees are stumps.
We're not only residentially oriented. Our education goals are also for businesses, and we actually have a whole brochure that we give out at our tabling events to educate business people about the benefits of having trees in their front. For instance, like it just brings more clients, and customers this is actually proven through studies that customers tend to stay longer in stores that have trees outside. Right, so we do educate and are happy to support businesses. Obviously, our goal right now is neighborhoods as a whole, and that includes businesses. So like if we were to when we go to Hilltop, if there's a business strip that's interested in planting trees, we're happy to support that. So yes, anybody in Tacoma who wants to plant trees and is not limited by, for instance, public schools are limited. Even though schools are really great places to plant trees, they have restrictions, they have needs and pressures on their budget that might not allow them to plant trees as much. But if there's a school that, maybe a private school that wants to plant more trees, we can do that. So as long as they can take care of it, which is really always the thing that we try to make sure is in place before we support.
Where do you get your trees?
So we get our trees from local nurseries that have overstock. So they're donations, basically. And people can also donate trees if they have trees or access to seedlings, root ball that they want to donate to us. We also happily accept those. So,
including alder?
Yeah. For instance, yes.
Question about, does the organization that was known as Plant Amnesty in Seattle ring any bells for your group here locally?
I've heard of it, but I can't say I can speak about it.
It addressed the common cause of getting arborists to do a better job instead of hat racking and butchering trees. And the woman who was in charge of it is no longer with us, unfortunately, but she was divine. She had this sense of humor of an angel.
Yeah, no, and an example of the important impact that residents have in educating and rallying people around these important issues, so, yeah.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So our last speaker is Claudia Riedner. Now she's going to be afraid to come up. She's born and raised in Switzerland, as you probably know, moved to Tacoma 25 years ago. Besides being a ceramic tile maker and potter, Claudia has an associate degree in horticulture from Triton College and used to work at the Chicago Botanic Garden as propagator and nursery grower, the Seymour Conservatory, and Lake Wold Gardens. Her love for plants started very early. She now grows many flowers in the Central Tacoma garden she created over 2 decades ago. Tonight, she will take you on a journey of the beauty of flowers and insects that thrive in the Pacific Northwest maritime climate. Claudia?
All right, well, thank you. Those are two pretty tough facts to follow, so I'm just going to show some beauty, and we'll keep it simple. Can we turn the lights down, please? Thank you. Could we turn the lights down a little? Thank you. All right, that's great. Thank you. All right, so this, like maybe totally turn them down. Thank you. I think it's better for the image. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, so here we go. This is actually not the first one, but we'll start right here. We bought our house 25 years ago, and the first thing we did was We bought our house 25 years ago, and the first thing we did was take up all the grass in the backyard. The entire backyard was grass. When we took it up, we saw there was not a single ant, not a single earthworm, and not a single bug in it, and that kind of freaked me out. So we started hauling mulch and prepped the back garden, but this is in the front, and that rhododendron, I believe, must have been there for probably 90 years. We love her very much. Her name is Cora, and she's named after our neighbor who came over to us right when we moved in, and she said, "You better take care of that tree. It's been around longer than you." So that's Cora. To the left, of course, is John being funny, but then you see that red-leaved tree. That was a purple-leaved filbert. Then we had a neighbor move in, complain about the tree because leaves on the truck. Had it removed, even though it was on our property, because we were too nice to him. 2 years later, he was gone, so that's the story about trees here in town. This was going to be number 1, but here it's number 2. That's just me, my happy place. This is the Beacon Hill Food Forest. They have tons of really great flowers. So why do we garden? We garden because we want to enhance the beauty of nature. We want to bring nature home. And here in this case, I started with 5 little bulbs, and this is our native fawn lily. It's called Erythronium. About 22 years ago, we had 5 little bulbs. I let them all be. I let them all go to seed. Now we have thousands in the front, in the side, and in the back. You can see how far back they go. Thank you, Eric. Much better. Thank you. Okay, so these are erythroniums, and you see a pink one and a white one. The white one's called Oregonum, and the pink one's our native, the Revolutum, but they're both kind of native around here. Sometimes you find them in the forest, but very seldom. Here's another image. You can see how far they go. That's our backyard. This is how they look on the inside. They all kind of, they're very pendulous, so they look down, so it's always nice to kind of flip them over and see how pretty they are on the inside. And then here are more natives. This is Aruncus dioecious, or goat's beard. And this is kind of like an astilbe, but it's native. You can find it in the forest. It thrives. Am I doing this? No. Oops. It thrives in our backyard. It needs no supplemental water. It goes to like 7, 8 feet tall by now. It suppresses all the weeds. And what I just learned last year, it's in a relationship with a native bee, and the native bee will overwinter in the canes. So if you have goat's beard, never cut it down, because that's where the little bees hang out. And here we have our what's called a false salmon seal, which is kind of unfortunate we call it false because it's very real. It's our native salmon seal, and it is oh so fragrant. Again, one of the natives that requires no care, no water, nothing at all. This one you all know, you're all familiar with. This is a 20-year-old clump. It gets bigger every year, and then something happens after it's pollinated. It turns pink or purple. 2 years ago, we had a really strange spring, and instead of pink, they all turned purple. This is not a color-enhanced photo, so that was kind of a screamer. And here we have a fringe cup. That's another native. This is a very tiny little flower. It starts out white, and again, when it's pollinated, it goes pink. It's divinely fragrant, but you kind of have to crawl around on your knees to get a scent of that. Here we have shooting star. This is a prairie plant, prefers much sun. It blooms really early, and this is a very old clump too, and I'm always hoping for seedlings. This spring, for the first time, we got a little seedling out of that one. Okay, I think we're freezing. Sorry. No, it doesn't go anywhere. So shooting stars are really fun because they start as a flower bud, they go up like this, and then when they start blooming, they go down, and then when they grow seeds, they go right back up. They get really tall, and they look a little bit like poppy seed heads with tiny little holes on the top, and when it's windy, you can hear them shake around and shake the seeds out of the top. They come in many different colors. This is a little pink, purple, and yellow. Many of them are dark purple. You can find lots of them down at Mima Mounds. It's worth a visit for that. Sorry. So yeah, grow natives. If you don't want to do much work in the garden, just fill it with natives. Then you don't have to water. You don't have to worry.
Okay, try that.
In the back, that tall one is a Salictrum. It's a meadow rue, which is not a native, but it's very pleasant. And then the fuzzy things to the left, those are Nigella, Nigella is really fun. It's called Love in the Mist when it's in bloom, and it's called Devil in the Bushes when it's in seed. It's an edible seed. It's used in Iranian cuisine. It's super delicious. I collect the seeds and we cook with them. Oh, here we go. More natives. So now you have kind of a fine line depending on how much of a purist you want to be. These are Pacific Coast irises. But with these colors, you can tell they're Pacific Coast hybrids. So usually they're more blue or they're yellow, and breeders have been all over them to create different colors. And once you have them, they'll self-seed and you'll find different color. The brown one was gifted to me by a gardener at Lakewell Gardens over 20 years ago, and that one's called Shall We Dance? So now, other reasons we garden, of course, besides natives, is color and happiness in the springtime. And these you're all familiar with. These are crocus. They're super rewarding. You just have to keep the squirrels away from them. But otherwise, they come back year after year. They can literally live hundreds of years. Very fun, very early. And then here we have, again, not a natural variety. This one's a flora plana, which means a double flower. This one's a sanguinaria or a bloodroot. That's actually from the Midwest. We saw them in the forests there. And behind it is a little Russian Pushkinia, really early, what's called ephemerals. They bloom quickly and then they're done. And then in the summertime, I love to use a lot of annuals. The tall ones are cosmos. The orange one is zinnia. Cosmos are massive pollinator attractors. And once you have a few, they'll self-seed. And if you take care of the seedlings, they'll bloom year after year. This one we've already seen earlier. I think Duncan, Mary, and I, and many of you have a mutual friend. And we lost him last year, and we still have his plants in our gardens. And that's another way to build connections. If you share your plants around, you'll always remember who gave it to you. And if you can keep it going, that's a nice thing to do. I grew a bunch of little seedlings, and they all started flowering, so that was really fun. 2 years, takes them 2 years. More reasons to grow flowers. This one's a Ligularia. You see the little curly tips. It's just a very fun flowers. The bees also go crazy for this one. This one's called Tigrida or tiger lily. The colors are shocking. It looks enhanced. It's not enhanced. This one's a bearded iris, and all you see here is the beard. This one's a very early one. It's called the liverwort, I think, hepatica. That's a real sweet one. You have to almost have it in a pot and put it on your garden table so that you actually see it in the spring, very early. Many flowers are amazing in bud. This is called the Crucinella, and oh, so fragrant. That's one of the most fragrant plants. It's not just the flower, but the foliage smells really strong. It has a musky smell, which some people don't like, a little skunky, but I actually like it. This one's another fragrant flower, and here's a neat little trick. When you have flowers that you really want to show off, try to take a photo at night with a flash. It'll make a world of a difference. This is really interesting because of that. But also I had to do it because this is night blooming. It's called night blooming phlox. This one's from South Africa, and it smells like candy. You just want to eat the thing. It's so delicious. And then also we grow plants because they're unusual, strange, weird, and they do all kinds of things we can't even imagine. This one's a ruscus, and you can see this is a leaf. It's very much zoomed in. And the leaf has a little leaf on top, and underneath the little leaf on top of the leaf comes out a little flower. And this is tiny. It's like maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. It's the puniest little thing, but every time I see it, it makes me happy. We also grow flowers and plants because of beautiful seeds. This one's called porcelain berry. The berries are really, really tiny, and so I did a macro photo, but you can see the gradation and the color is a really fun plant to grow. If you have it, you want to keep it in a pot. If you stick it in the ground, it'll grow foliage and no flowers. And then we have the creepy ones, which I like a lot. This one's called Dead Man's Fingers. I got this one from the Chicago Botanic Garden from a collection they did in China, and I planted one plant that I grew from seed. I only managed to grow one. It didn't produce anything for like 15, 20 years, and finally grew one seed pod, and now I have like 7 of them, and I also give a bunch away. It's a really beautiful plant. Easy. So again, seeds. This one's the nigella I showed you earlier, in foliage. This one's called Devil in the Bushes. So that's how the seed pod looks like. This one's just an ornamental garlic, really, really fun seeds, and it's a very geometric structure to the plant. This plant's great when it's in bud, when it's in bloom, and long afterwards. We collect those seed heads and put them in vases just so we have an ornament inside. These are really fun. Anybody know what they are? Right. Snapdragons. If you grow snapdragons, wait till they go to seed and then turn them upside down. They look like little skull faces. I love them. They're tiny little guys, but very creepy cute. And this is actually the spore pattern of a fern. This is a fern I found in Mississippi, and I took it home. It's a resurrection fern, and so I have a tiny little pot of it. And it goes completely dried up, and you think it's dead, and suddenly pops back. But the back of the leaf has this phenomenal spore structure. It's really ornamental for that. And then plants do other weird things. So this one's our native tiger lily. And it'll grow in the leaf axils where the leaves are attached to the stem. It'll grow these little mini bulbs. They're called bulbils, and they're ready with roots. They're ready to jump off the stem without any pollination, without any flowers. It's a vegetative propagation, if you will. They jump off the stem, immediately set roots, and get ready to grow. That's putting all your eggs in all your baskets. Okay, and now here we go for a few insects, and some of them might be a little creepy, but to me they're not. I love insects very much, and I'm really happy we have so many since we started out with 0, basically. So this one's a clear-winged borer, and even though it's extremely beautiful, this one is the menace who destroyed my red currants. So we can't grow currants. Basically, nobody can really grow currants successfully in our area. This thing will go and bore holes inside the stem, lives inside the stem, then the little guys hatch, they eat all the leaves, and they move into the berries and turn the berries rock hard. So if you like red currants, this is your enemy number 1. They're very pretty though. It's pretty big too. And you can see the little tongue being all curled up. Here we have, I'm not sure, it's either an 8-spotted or a 12-spotted darner. I'm not sure which spots we are supposed to count, but it's one of our dragonflies, and we have a lot of dragonflies. And here we see somebody with really big eyeballs. It's a stink bug. You probably all have those. They're actually a big pest. And the little guys are black. The little baby nymphs are black with funny little spidery legs, and they're super cute. They move around super cute. But if you see those, it's okay to totally squish them. They're bad.
Can you explain the photo a little more?
The photo is a piece of John's garden art. And so it's a piece of metal with a stick, and he got these eyeballs. Once he broke his arm, and somebody gave him a bunch of goofy things to play with, and he got this set of eyeballs. I don't know why. And so he put it on his metal sculpture, and the shield bug, the green bug, is on the right-hand side, just crawling over it. Plastic eyeballs, what can I say? Halloweeny. And here we have a hoverfly. Hoverflies are interesting because they try to mimic bees, so they can kind of fly under the radar. Pretty small, huge eyes. And this is one of my favorite. This one's the green metallic sweat bee, and they're very difficult to take photos of. I sit there with my macro lens for hours, or what seems hours, and just to get them to sit still for a minute because they're very fast. This one's the girl. The girl's prettier, of course, and it's all shiny, shiny green. And then here we have the male, where he's a little skinnier, and they have these really interesting yellow and white striped backs. So you can tell they're not a hornet, but they kind of have a hornet or a wasp abdomen. And here is the face. What a great face. That's the boy's face. It's a little small. This one's a Luisha. You're probably familiar with Luishas. They're tiny little flowers. So the flower is itty bitty. And the bees inside of there, they're actually called tiny little black bees. That's their professional name. And they slept in there, in the flower together. In the morning when the flower opened, they were in there hanging out together. And then when it got a little warmer, they buzzed off. This was a very happy moment. And we've seen a video of these earlier. This is the yellow cross spider. It's called a hatch. That's a very cool name. You touch them and they all run away, and then they get scared and they all come back together. And here we have a skipper. Skipper looks very much like a moth, and they've become more and more rare. So please, plant pollinators. They've become more rare, and you can see its long tongue just about getting ready to get into the verbena flower. The flowers are very, very tiny. And then here you see it all curled up. It's a little blurry, but look at that curl, that tongue. See how long it is? It's all curled up. And that's so it can go into those long tubular flowers to find nectar. And this one, I had a very hard time finding out what it was, and I think they call it a wool garner, because what these bees do, they go to very hairy plants and they rasp all the fuzz away from the plant so they can build a little nest for their little eggs to hatch in, make a soft little bed. Big green eyeballs. And here we have a robber fly. That's very early. They come out really early and then they kind of disappear. I haven't found out why they call them robber, but look at those legs. That's a plum blossom not opened yet. And here we go to the good guys. This one's a green lacewing. Green lacewings are really great because when they're nymphs, they actually eat a whole bunch of aphids. They're predatory, very much predatory. But then when it's an adult, it's just pretty and flutters around. It's not predatory any longer when it's adult. However, the brown lacewing has this is the young one, and you can see the pincers. They can probably eat a whole bunch of different little soft-bodied prey like aphids and whatnot. They remain predatory when they're adults, when they are winged. So that one's a double beneficial insect. So if you see a brown lacewing, be happy. This little guy is called a leaf miner fly. It's a fly. It's apparently a true fly. It's unbelievably small, and I only noticed it because I go out in the morning and look at my chard and kale, and they have leaf miners. I have a huge leaf miner infestation. I hardly grow those greens anymore. And then I found out that this little bugger, itty-bitty little guy, lays all these eggs on the backs of the leaves, and they hatch and live inside the leaf. and they mine around inside the leaf and pretty much destroy your vegetables. So not my friend, but it's cute. This one's a large silk moth. That's a caterpillar. I've never seen the adult. It's supposedly very big, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 inch wingspan. It's a nocturnal moth. It's super beautiful. I only seen the caterpillars, and they're very big too. They're about the size of my index finger, pretty big. This one's called a 8-spotted forester. This one's actually a true moth, and they are very rare to see, but finally we start having a little bit more diversity. And this one's actually a moth that prefers daytime activity, so it's not a nocturnal moth, which most of them kind of are. And then here we have more crime in the garden. This is a crab spider. Crab spiders are funny. Sometimes they're white. They can be yellow. They can be pink. They can totally morph into the plant, and you can't even see him. And here he's eating a little honeybee. Here's another dragonfly. So thank you very much for zooming in. This one's called the basket dragonfly because it has that beautiful kind of a weaving pattern on its body. They sit completely still, so they're actually fairly easy to take a photograph. And then here we have a jumping spider. This one, I took a macro lens to this one. Look at those hairy legs. It's insane. And this is a baby. This was a tiny little guy. He was very shy when he saw me. He tried to disappear into the plant. This one is, surprise, surprise, called an orange spider. This one's very, very pregnant. This is the biggest one I ever saw. I don't even know how she was managing to hang upside down because she was super plump. And then here we have more hoverflies. They, again, kind of bee mimickers, fly under the radar like that. This one, I had a very hard time finding out what it was. Can you believe those pollen pans? These are the biggest pollen pans I've ever seen. Those legs, that's all pollen packed under there. And I think it's called a sunflower bee, but if you know its name, please help me out because I had a hard time finding it. This one's a great one, and this one bites. This one's called a snakefly. And even though they're super common, they're really good at hiding and running and flying away, and I was really lucky to catch this one. It's also called a camel neck fly or something like that, and you can kind of see why it would be called that, because it has a funny neck. And here is one of the reasons also why I garden, is to give joy to people that happen to wander by or live there. I think that's it. Yeah, here, back to the Vodi. Here we are. I tried to stay under 15 minutes. You think I did? Close.
Questions? That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to show you a piece of artwork that Erik, our tech, did. He's a photographer, and can you see this? He recently got 3 different pieces accepted in 3 different art shows in the Northwest.
That one is called Serenity at a Gallop.
You have to do a twirl in your dress. Because I love your dress. That's a great dress.
Thank you.
All right.
So next month's tripod is July 19th, a Friday night as usual. And Blake LaRue is a restorer of church stained glass windows. And some of us got to see a lecture he did a couple of months ago, and it was so intriguing. We thought you all would like to see what he does. And then Dick Weiss, perhaps Dick, you could raise your hand. Dick Weiss will show his contemporary stained glass screens and windows. And then Hilltop Art Glass is going to do a presentation. So that's July 19th. put it on your calendar. So thanks so much for coming and contributing to this. Thanks.